Today, I'm speaking with a fascinating leader, Captain Marquet, who's a former commander of the USS Santa Fe nuclear submarine. His story is extremely inspiring. The book that he wrote, Turn the Ship Around, is to me the benchmark on how we should be running teams. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this episode. Please listen to Captain David Marquet. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today, I am so honored and privileged to speak with the founder and owner of a company called Intent-Based Leadership International, which is great in itself. But what you don't know is that he has been is a former nuclear submarine commander. He's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Turn the Ship Around and Leadership is Language. He's a global keynote speaker. And I have to tell you, I've been listening to his audible version of Turn the Ship Around that he narrates himself. It's absolutely fascinating. Captain David Marquet, I'm so honored that you're taking the time today.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me on your show.
That's amazing. The story you tell in the book and how you take this USS Santa Fe and what you did with it, absolutely fascinating. But first of all, how did you get to say to yourself, okay, I want to join the Navy and I want to join the submarine division? I mean, I know a lot of people that wanted to go into the military, maybe the Navy, but the submarine, how did that happen?
Yeah. So I grew up during the Cold War. I was on the math team. I was on the chess club. I was one of these, we called ourselves geeks. We were proud of that.
Yeah.
I was born in Berkeley, California. I was left-handed. So I wasn't the typical profile for a person to be like gung-ho military guy, but I really felt passionately about this Cold War situation. And I felt strongly about the liberal democracy. And I want to do my part. Well, it's scary, a lot of things, but if you're an introvert, then what's better than a submarine? You go underwater and you hide from people. So, and I was a big fan of history books. I read about all these submarines. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do. That's super cool. And like that was the place to be during the Cold War. So, so I applied. I got to the Naval Academy. I applied to be a submariner. I became a submariner, and kind of that's what happened. But I was always I always felt a bit like an outsider, because even in the submariners, even though the submariners are sort of, I think they're more like the chess players of the military, but it's still sort of a gung-ho, brawny approach. And I was always like, well, why are we doing it that way? Why do we do it? And like, no, just do what you're told. I mean, come on.
And then when you join then the submarine division, you've been in several submarine before.
Yeah.
And that the story you tell in Turn the Ship Around, where you basically giving now the command of submarine USS Santa Fe. And the story you're telling in the book is fascinating, where people are more focused on basically respecting the rules than thinking of why they doing that. How did you decide to say, you know what, I have to do that another way? There must be another way, and I'm going to put that new system in place.
Yes. Well, the problem was I was rewarded for making decisions, and then getting the team to do what I decided they needed to do. And since I made good decisions and I could diagnose the problems, I kept getting promoted for this ability to make decisions and get the team to do what I wanted them to do. So this is a standard organizational design structure where we have senior people make decisions and junior people do what the senior people tell them to do. We don't even think about it. We don't even realize there's other ways to design hierarchies in organizations. Mm-hmm. So I show up on the submarine. Well, I was trained for 12 months to go to one submarine. And the very last minute, I said, no, you got to go to the Santa Fe instead. Why the Santa Fe? The Santa Fe had the reputation it was the worst submarine, worst morale, She was the laughing stock of the fleet. And the captain actually had quit. That's why I had to go there. So I had 2 weeks, get ready for the Santa Fe. But here was the kicker. It was a different kind of submarine. And in the past, I'd say, I would just use my ability to sort things out and get the team to do it to make things better. And so I tried that on the Santa Fe, and we ran an exercise. This is the very first day we were at sea. Ran an exercise. We like to run lots of exercises on ourselves in the military and make sure we're ready for all kinds of things. This is an exercise where we shut down the nuclear reactor, which there's only one. So it's very tense because you're losing battery power. And I had an idea, hey, shift into second gear on the electric motor. There's no second gear on the Santa Fe. It was one of the newest ships in the fleet. Just one gear, simplify the machinery. It's the trend that the Navy was going to. But anyway, I didn't know that. So say, hey, why don't we go to second gear? And the officer ordered it. This was the key. So one, I made a mistake. Two, the officer repeated the mistake.
Yeah, for those listening and listening to your book, that's what you said. You order move to second gear, and then the officer repeat the order. And then
so this is a picture of the control room. So this guy right here has a knob in front of him where he's supposed to turn it, but he kind of made a face like this. And I was like, what happened? And he says, Captain, there's no second gear on the Santa Fe. It's a one-speed motor. And I was immediately embarrassed. I became sort of internally focused. I looked down at my shoes. And then I had this light bulb moment where I thought about the officer, and I said, hey, his name was Bill. Bill, did you know about this? Now, Bill was he was the officer who'd been the longest on the submarine. He'd been there over 2 years. He'd sailed over 10,000 miles. I figured he must have known. And he did know. And he said, yes, sir, I did. And he gave me this grin. It was just really super annoying. I kind of want to punch him in the face. I said, well, Bill, riddle me this. Why, if you knew there was no second gear, why did you order second gear? And he looks me right in the square in the eye and says, because you told me to.
Oh, wow.
And if you're out there and say, oh, well, that would only happen in the military, you're living in la la land, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
We see this all the time. Volkswagen, Wells Fargo, BP, on and on and on. People are conditioned and trained to do what they're told. And then we sprinkle, quote, empowerment fairy dust and say, oh, but speak up. It doesn't work. Some people will, and then you can convince yourself, oh, look, my people are speaking up. But you have no idea that 8 out of 10 times people didn't speak up. Mm-hmm. Which is about what the probabilities are. And so it hit me, my picture of leadership, which was I make decisions, you do what you're told. Okay, this didn't go right. I made a bad decision. The problem was I made a bad decision. Mm-hmm. No, that's wrong. Mm-hmm. That's based on this outdated model of leadership. The problem was I was the one making decisions. And even though I was the most senior person in the organization, and especially because I was the most senior person in the organization, I needed to get out of making decisions. I needed the team to make the decisions, and then I could think about and evaluate the decision. I needed a team to make the decision for 2 reasons, at least 2 reasons. Number one, they knew more about the mechanics of the thing than I did, like which buttons to push. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I needed them to take ownership and initiative, not wait for me to tell them what to do. And we push the authority for making decisions close to the people who have the information, as close as possible. Most organizations do the opposite.
Right.
So we set on this journey where I said, I'm not going to make any decisions. You guys are going to come tell me what you do. Mm-hmm. You're going to tell me what you see. You're going to tell me what you think. You're going to tell me what you'd like to do. And ideally, you're going to tell me what you intend to do. And this was the target zone. This is what we really wanted to get to. Because when someone says, hey, here's the situation, here's what I think, here's what I intend to do. They don't need to wait for permission. They already have permission. You discuss it, you can veto it. That makes it safe. You need to make it safe for them and for you. But the core is this intent. It creates ownership because I go CEO after CEO says, I want my people to act like owners. I want them to take initiative. Well, and then I sit in on a meeting, and the meeting looks like the CEO is saying, so what about this? And how about an idea here? And what do you guys think about? Well, you're the only one thinking. You're the only one speaking. Shut up.
And to your point, I've been in a situation where the person with the highest authority is going, and this is the problem, and I think we should do this. What do you think?
Right.
Everybody said, yeah, we agree with you.
Exactly, right. And then we say later, well, you all had a chance to disagree. The problem is, I mean, I know with the meetings, lots of manage isn't necessarily internal decision meetings, but for me, it's fun. Internal decision meetings are run on an industrial age manner, which is designed to get people to go along with what the senior person thinks. 99% of them. What you really want to do is if you're the senior person running the meeting, don't say what you think. And actually what you want to do is people vote first.
Yep.
So let's say the question is, we're the C-suite at Boeing. We're making a decision whether we should launch 737 MAX airplanes, whether the product is ready for market. Now, if we run it like this, hey, we've done all this testing. Airbus is getting a leg up on us. And we got the FAA behind us. So we're good to go, right? And then we say later, oh, but everyone had a chance to speak up. That's dishonest.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you want to do is ask the question, how ready are we? How ready is the product for market?
Yeah.
1 to 99. 1 meaning not ready at all. 99 meaning definitely ready. Now notice there's no 0 and 100 because everything about the future is not certain. If you think you can score 0 or 100 for the future, again, you're living in la la land, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so the key is vote first, then discuss it, because the discussion, even if it doesn't come from the boss, anchors the group. You want to avoid that because what that does is it collapses uncertainty and it collapses diverse thinking into the just commonly held beliefs, which is not going to, like, you just killed any innovation when you did that.
I have a reflection and a question based on what you said. The reflection is that you're going to the USS Santa Fe is the lower score in terms of performance. Good thing, bad thing, you never know. Sounds to me like because of their reputation, there's room for improvement that probably is. You can bring more innovation than if something was at the top of the game, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
And the question I have, how do you create this environment of trust? And I guess the image that I have, that probably a lot of people have of the military, is that if the captain says something, that everybody should follow. So how do you create this environment of trust where I feel comfortable maybe speaking my mind, or even not words, but even stronger, disagreeing, to put something on the table, and that I'm not risking to be fired. And I guess if you can do it in the military, anybody can do it.
Yeah, right. We definitely had a culture. The captain will tell people what to do, and it'll cascade down from there. And I had to get away from that because I was not the guy who should have been making those kind of decisions. I could approve decisions, but I didn't want to be the source of decisions. So step one is just never tell people what to do. And I made a vow I wouldn't. So they would come to me and say, hey, Captain, here's the situation. What should we do? And I would just say, I got really good at avoiding answering that. I would say, well, tell me more about it. I would always start with description. Tell me more. Like, what's that like? And what's going on? And is it like anything else that you've seen? But those kind of description. Then I would get to a thinking and assessment. So what do you think's causing that? Or what's behind it? Or what's the root cause? And then I would get to the future. So what should we do? If you were me, what would you do? If you were the families at home, what would you want us to do right now? Mm-hmm. If you were the head of the Navy, what would you want us to do? There's questions like that. And those tend to be forward projections, and they often involve displacement. So I would take you I would take your brain. We think our view of the world is from behind our own eyeballs. So these things happen to me. And that gets in the way of really being our best selves. So I would take that and I would say, no, you're over here. Look back at yourself. You're in time travel. You're 6 months in the future. Imagine yourself 6 months in the future. What would you want you to do today? Oh, well, I would want to do this. Or I would say, I would take you and put you in a different perspective. Hey, you're the captain. I sometimes would actually have him sit in my chair. Hey, here's my sit right here. And so you got to get out from behind your own eyeballs and look back at yourself, which humans have the ability to do, but we don't use that skill often enough. We're kind of just stuck back here, and they would come up with amazing things. And then I would just say, I would ask them questions, and they got really good at knowing I was going to ask certain kinds of questions, which was like, prove to me it's safe. Or how are you making sure this is safe? And then how are you making sure this aligns with what we're trying to achieve? Mm-hmm. Those are the two pillars of questions. And so they came ready to answer those questions. They say, here's what I intend to do. Here's why it's safe. Here's how it aligns with our objectives. And I would say, very well. And they would be off to the races. But this idea that we need permission is just humans created that structure. Humans in the industrial age, just not the Mother Nature didn't force humans to operate that way. There's no laws of physics. It's not like gravity. If I drop the pen's going to fall. But we just decided to do that. We just decided, why is it that people at the top make decisions for people at the bottom? I don't know. And it hit me one day. This is just something we decided to do, like arranging the chairs in the meeting room. So we can undecide to do that, but you have to realize that it's something that humans just decided, and that there are other options before you can think about not doing it.
You're showing your team, your crew, that it's okay to have an opinion, it's okay to talk.
Yeah.
But you also have, or need to have, the support of the people above you in the chain of command.
Not really. But I had a benefit. I was on a submarine. So we go out to sea. We shut the hatch. My boss was hundreds of miles away. It's not like I'm walking down the hallway and then like he'd show up. Like, how'd you like you couldn't get on board. We were underwater. So we incubate. We were able to incubate the problem pretty well, and how we were doing with the thing for months. My boss actually came on the submarine within about a week and saw what was happening, and he was super excited, and he left. And he kind of left us alone. But you have the ability to control yourself. And this is the one of the key lessons to me in my life. And this is when my stress level went from here down to here. The problem with modern hierarchical structures is it's designed to be stressful. Right. So here I am, I can control myself. Here's the people above me, and here are the people below me. And what happens is, in modern hierarchy, the people above me are trying to control me, and I'm trying to control the people below me. And that's inherently stressful. So what you want to do is create an organization. This is what intent does. You just control yourself. And I would control the way I ask questions. That was my contribution. I would not answer, and I would ask questions. And when someone said something, here's the other key. When someone says something that says like, that sounds weird, that sounds wrong. Yeah. And every leader's had this experience. Someone comes to you and says, hey, the client asked for stadium seating, but we want to give them rounds or something like that. Like, we can't fit as many people in the room. Well, and so that's how we react, as opposed to reacting with curiosity. Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Tell me about it. How would that look? What would be the first step? How could we test it? How'd you come up with that idea? And react with curiosity. Every time you hear there's something that disagrees with you, you should be excited, because that's a potential innovation. It's something you haven't thought of. Yeah. Like if you've already thought of it, it's not innovation.
And how could you do that when your ego is on the way, as we've seen in too many organizations and too many business culture, actually?
Yeah, my next book's on ego, so I've been reading a lot about it right now. But it's again, it's like your ego gets in the way when you're stuck behind your eyeballs, because it becomes all about you, because you don't realize there's different perspectives. So you say, well, get out from me and say, okay, now what is I like to go to the future.
In my experience, I've seen that as well, not only when you're behind your eyeballs, but also when you're insecure. And it's a way of hiding that, or not letting others speak their mind.
Yeah.
But you had you used two words that I thought fascinating in creating this culture where people come to you and tell you what they think. You said, I intend. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So here's the structure. I'll show you. So people come and they say, tell me what to do. And you don't tell them what to do. You say, what do you see? And then what do you think? And then you get up here to I intend. And it was deliberate. I would go step by step in that way. But intent is a magic word for me, because leaders have a trade-off between organizational alignment. So in other words, getting everyone working together. And I think, if I tell everyone what to do, I coordinate, I'm sort of the central node, then I'm going to get alignment. You don't get a lot of thinking, and you don't get distributed decision-making. So we say, okay, well, the alternative is I'll just let people make decisions, but then there's sort of this picture of semi-chaos where everyone's doing their own thing. And there's a lot of thinking and distributed decision-making, but I give up alignment. And the magic of intent is you get both. You get alignment and thinking. So thinking is because they have to come to you. You're not saying, you can't intend for someone else to do something. I intend for you to load a torpedo tomorrow. No. I would say, hey, if our mission was changing from where we needed missiles to torpedoes, and and the weapons officer wasn't coming to me saying, hey, Captain, I see our mission's changing. We're going to need to change our loadout. I would call him in and say, hey, did you see our mission's changing? No. Okay, well, well, let me know what you think how that impacts you. Because I'm trying to get thinking. I need thinking. Like I could just order them to do it. It feels faster, but it's a dead end. Because then every day, every week, every month, every year, 10 years from now, I'm still doing that. Intent resides with the individual. Ownership lives in the individual. Initiative lives in the individual, and there's a bias for action. But there's also coordination, because we announce these things publicly. The weapons officer would then say at the next department head meeting, hey, so next Tuesday, I'm going to shift from torpedoes to missiles because of the mission. And that may affect, say, for example, the engineer, who has to make sure that the hydraulic system is ready to go, or the supply officer who has food stored around where the missiles are going to go, and so he's got to clear that out. So everyone else can then say, okay, if you're going to do that, I need to do this, or we'll watch out for that kind of thing. So these discussions, the team is aligning itself, and you get both. That's the magic. Yeah. It's literally a magic word. People would say it, and then it kind of cascaded down the crew. And so you would go all around the submarine, and there was no more just do what I'm told. Everyone on the crew was like, oh, I'm thinking. So I thought of it like we had 140 brains. We used to have, i.e. leaders, we used to have one brain and 139 pairs of hands.
Yeah. What happened if the brain is not available or,
brain's not available or the brain's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this idea is, it's about resilience.
Yeah, and also linked to that resilience, and what you just mentioned is basically you're thinking out loud so that others around you can hear what you're thinking.
So it's such an important concept. We call it think out loud, and we have all this stuff going on in our head, and we don't just share it. And there's a great video. I made I captured a segment of it, but there's a video of this 3-year-old skiing, and she's kind of talking. She's just talking about ice. I see you, ice. I'm going around you, ice. I'm going over you, ice. It's a cute and adorable, but it's brilliant because this expression of what we're doing, and that's exactly how our team would sound. If we were doing an operation, people say, opening the outer door, flooding down the torpedo tube, starting the trim pump, changing depth to this level. And rather than having this sort of silence, we filled it with this chatter, but there was this awareness of what everyone else was doing. And it was really, really powerful. And it's not the way people normally operate. If you want to practice this next time you're driving. Mm-hmm. So as you're driving, people don't normally say, oh, I see a stoplight, I plan on stopping. But think about that. So my daughter's learning to drive. This was a long time ago. And I'm sitting there and I'm worried, and I keep interrupting. I keep saying, hey, do you see the family? Do you see the car coming? Do you see the stoplight? Yes, Dad. She's getting irritated. I said, well, I don't know that you see it. So why don't you just tell me that? So we just think out loud. I see the stop sign. I'm going to stop. I see this. I see the car coming at the end to the intersection. I have the right of way, but I'm on alert in case they don't stop. Great. You don't need to do that forever, but now I can be quiet. That gives you control over your life. She gained control over her life by doing that. Mm-hmm. But it's not a thing that we practice, generally speaking. But in teams, that's what you want to do. And you want to do that with your boss. Hey, here's what we're thinking about doing. Here's how we're thinking about it. Help make my thinking stronger. You can expose your thinking to scrutiny, invite the scrutiny, help make it stronger. I don't need you to decide for me. I just want you to help me how I think about it.
Right. So I don't even know if it was from you, but I wrote this quote, which I love, that says, burnout is usually not only caused by too much work, but by uncertainty, lack of focus, clarity, and guidance. And I really love that. And the link to what you said, you disagree. Tell me why. I'd love to know that.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure I said that, but okay.
Okay. No, I don't know if it was from you, but that's what I said. Okay. I wish I would have written, but the fact that the burnout being created by not really too much work, but uncertainty, lack of focus, clarity, and guidance. So the leader needs to set up like the highway, and then people decide which lane and at which speed they want to drive and which vehicle they want to use.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean, it depends what you mean by the highway. I think that the leader, when they're doing things right, is creating the structure for how the team's going to interact. Mm-hmm. And the team can decide how they're going to build a product and that kind of thing. I mean, we're probably not going to change from being an events company to an electric vehicle manufacturer. But I think burnout, for me in my life, you could, when you got it right, you can deal very resiliently with a lot of uncertainty. Burnout comes from continuously having someone try and control you and continuously trying to control somebody else. And it's just exhausting and stressful. That's for me. Like when I think about my own experience and what makes me tired, just to think about it, it's like, oh, I got to manage my boss and I got to figure out how not to let them know too much about what I'm doing, because the more my boss knows about what I'm doing, then that gives them more ammunition to tell me what to do. Now that's bad behavior. If you're a boss, you don't want to be like that. But Crystal says, eyes on, hands off. Yeah, go ahead.
It resonates so much with me, what you said. And I always believed, but that's the culture that is created by the top. And that's the responsibility of a leader, to create that environment where it's okay not to spend your life basically. It's like those people from one board meeting to another, or from one business meeting to another. They prepare slides and everything for what they're going to say and try to hide under the carpet the dust that they don't want to talk about, where actually that's the dust that should be talked about to improve the organization.
So I ended up working at the Pentagon for a little while, and we go to these meetings, And it would be blah, 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 slide. And at the end, I had no idea whether this was a good story or a bad story. And I'd have to say things like, so am I happy? Like, how do you feel about, oh, no, this is great. Oh, no idea. Because we somehow think like, well, that's an emotional assessment and we have to leave emotions at home. And that's wrong. So like you could really make this thing a lot shorter if you say, I'm a little nervous about what's going on. I'm worried that we're going to make our end date. I'd say right now we have a 40% probability of being there on time, something like that. And giving people permission to say that, but we don't do that. We want everyone to make. Alan Mullally, he's got a great book, American Icon. He's the guy who took over Ford when they were in trouble a couple of years ago. And he tells a story about they were, at the time, they were losing like $5 billion a year, something like that. Things were not going well. And he goes to one of the first, they had this weekly operations review meeting with all the senior Ford execs. And there's this throw up a stoplight chart, another one of my things to hate. And they're all green, everything's green. And he kind of listens patiently and everyone's blah, 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 green, blah, blah, blah. So he says, wait a minute. So he's all over, he tolerates all this, humors them. And then he says, so wait a minute. So let me get this right. We're losing $5 billion a year, but all of our indicators are green.
Yep. I've been in that sort of meetings. Yep.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah. So I know that actually personally, I spent hours speaking with you. It's absolutely fascinating what you've done. And once again, if you haven't bought the book, Turn the Ship Around yet, you should not only buy it, but buy it on Audible and listen to Captain Marquet telling the story. It's absolutely fascinating. But I know I don't have many more minutes with you. So can I have two last questions?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Rapid fire.
What was your most scary moment, and what did you learn from it? That you can talk about, of course.
Yeah, my most scary moment was real early on the submarine. I walked in the sonar. This is the sonar, so we listen to the sounds in the ocean because there's no windows. You can't see underwater. And I'm asking the sailors about the different buttons. You can see all these different buttons. Now, I'd never seen the sonar system before. It was brand new Navy thing. And I asked the sailor, hey, what about this? And the sailor didn't know. And the sailor kind of looked a little sheepish and was like, I don't know. And then everyone looked at me because at this point, that's where the captain would say, well, I'll tell you, blah, 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 blah. Because the captain always knew. Because I would have gone to 12 months of schooling to learn that and everything else about submarine. But I didn't know either. That was scary. I could feel my heart beating. There was a silence. My palms were sweaty. I was breathing kind of shallow and fast. And I was like, oh, what do I say? Do I pretend like I know and put a mask on? Or and I, for some reason, I just said, like, I don't know either.
Uh-huh.
And the guys were like, what? You're the captain. But here's the deal. If the leader can't admit they don't know, then the team's not going to be able to admit they don't know. And if the team doesn't admit they don't know, then you're never going to learn a thing. All learning starts with the admission that I don't know, or that I might not know. So it doesn't end with I don't know, but it starts with I don't know. So this, which was for me, when you're in a position where you, as a leader, you're supposed to know the answers, that was super scary. But it turned out to be super powerful. And we became the best performing submarine in the fleet, highest score ever in the history of the Navy for operating the ship, on the strength of people being able to say, but my team said, oh, I don't know the answer to that, more often than they did on any other submarine. Mm-hmm. But those two things are linked.
And if I'm not mistaken, from what I researched, there's at least 10 subsequent captain of submarine that actually came from the team that you train and you lead.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about, yes, that's the point of the book. So the point of too many leadership books is, oh, I came, I saw, I conquered. If you're more like me, you'd be a better leader. And those books irritate me because it's not about the team, it's about them. We put our picture on the cover, that kind of thing. And for me, the strength of what we did on Santa Fe was we created more leaders. So 10 of the officers in the wardroom became submarine commanders, which is a hugely disproportionate number because they were thinking like captains, even when they were just junior officers.
Did they change the way they train new recruits from the experience your experience on the Santa Fe?
No.
Really?
It's crept in like a virus, and so teams operate. If you go any submarine now, you'll hear I intend to. Okay. So the operating side has adopted it, and it's a lot of times because these 10 officers went out and kind of spread the word and said they operated that way, and then they more and more. So, and people saw the power of it. So that's how the submarine force operates now. But it, like the official Navy training program, doesn't.
Wow.
They don't realize that they're making a choice about leadership, which is we have a choice between a leadership structure, which is about telling people what to do, versus leadership structure, which is freeing people to think for themselves.
Yep. Thank you for that. My last question, and I asked friends, I said I'm going to be speaking with a former commander of nuclear submarine. What kind of question should I ask? So besides that, what is this button you used to, or what are the codes? And by the way, when you're talking about the sonar, totally unrelated, but there's an ad from Berlitz talking about the sonar and radar. I don't know if you know about it.
What are you? We're thinking.
Yeah. I just love it.
What are you thinking about? Yeah, I know, that's hilarious.
But the greatest question I got from a friend, Roger Rickard, and it's linked obviously to what you do and also to what we do in the meetings and event industry in general. It said, to what extent did having meetings play a role in the success of your military operation?
So I love the fact that it's not a binary question. A lot of people would ask a question, did meetings play a role? Which is yes, no. So it's not a very interesting question. So to ask a question, to what extent? I love questions that start like that. So thank you, Roger. Huge. But first thing I did was cancel every meeting, though. So I was a hero. And then we rescheduled the meetings that actually mattered. And the problem is our meetings were theater. Our meetings were show. We weren't really conversing. And we had to have real conversations. And I replaced a lot of sort of group meetings with one-on-one meetings. And I had a one-on-one with each of my key department heads and second in command. And the rule in that meeting was you couldn't talk about anything that mattered in the next month. So that forced a long-term perspective. And the engineer always want to talk about the hydraulic leak that he's working to repair and that kind of stuff. Like, no, that's too short term. Let's talk about something that's at least a month away. And that was very powerful. But meetings are super important. But the thing is, most people don't put thought into how they run the meeting. And if you type in how to run a meeting in Google, it'll give you a bunch of stuff that's basically not that helpful. Like, have an agenda and tell people ahead of time what it's about, blah, blah, blah. We're not fundamentally getting at the structure of the meeting, which is, and there are different kinds of meetings, but if it's a decision meeting, you need to vote first before there's any discussion, and almost no one does it. The point of maximum diversity of cognitive thought occurs prior to the first person talking about the thing. And you want to capture maximum diversity of thinking as best as you can, not squeeze people to some common ground. It feels comfortable, but you're going to be out of business. McKinsey study showed in the 50s, a company would spend the average length of time of a company in the Fortune 500 was 61 years. Now it's 18. because companies have been trading efficiency at the cost of resilience. And one of the fundamental structures, which feels efficient, but it's not resilient, is a structure where we channel information to a decision maker, which is then distributed back out.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Captain Marquet, it's been an honor and a pleasure listening to you. I can't wait to hear you at the next keynote you're doing in our industry. And thank you so much for your time and your sharing your knowledge today.
Cheers, Eric. Thanks for having me on your show. Welcome all listeners.
Captain Marquet, thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time with us today. Absolutely fascinating. And once again, for those who have not had the opportunity to listen to you narrating your book, Turn the Ship Around, this is a must-do and something extremely enjoyable, and you learn a lot. If you want to link up with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, The Business of Meetings, where we discuss everything related to owning your business in the meetings and event industry.